Why do we love being scared? It seems counterintuitive. We spend our lives avoiding danger and unpleasant feelings, yet we find ourselves drawn to horror stories, movies, and haunted houses. The answer lies in the power of fear and tension. These elements tap into our primal instincts, triggering a rush of adrenaline and excitement. It's a safe way to experience the thrill of danger without any real-life consequences. Horror stories thrive on our deepest anxieties. They take our everyday fears and amplify them. Think about the things that keep you up at night: the dark, the unknown, the possibility of something lurking just out of sight. These are the very things that horror writers exploit so masterfully. They understand that the most effective scares are those that resonate with our own vulnerabilities. A well-crafted horror story doesn't rely on cheap jump scares alone. It weaves a tapestry of fear and tension, drawing the reader into a world of unease and dread. It's a slow burn, a creeping sense of something being deeply wrong. This essay will explore the techniques that master storytellers use to evoke these feelings. We'll delve into the art of suspense, pacing, psychological horror, atmosphere, and uncertainty. So buckle up and get ready for a thrilling ride through the dark side of storytelling. We're about to uncover the secrets behind the chills, the thrills, and the undeniable power of a truly terrifying tale. Suspense is the lifeblood of a good horror story. It's the slow, agonizing wait, the anticipation of something terrible about to happen. Think of it like this. You're watching a pot of water on the stove. You know it's going to boil eventually, but the waiting is almost unbearable. That's suspense. Stephen King, the master of horror himself, is a pro at building suspense. In his chilling novel, The Shining, he traps the Torrance family in the isolated Overlook Hotel during a harsh winter. As snow piles up outside, cutting them off from the world, strange and terrifying things begin to happen. King slowly increases the tension with each passing chapter. He drops subtle hints, leaving the reader to fill in the blanks with their own terrifying imagination. One minute, young Danny Torrance is seeing creepy twins in the hallway. The next, his father Jack is battling his own inner demons and the hotel's sinister influence. King doesn't give us all the answers at once. He makes us wait, holding our breath, dreading what might be lurking around the next corner. And that's what makes The Shining so terrifyingly effective. Pacing is like the heartbeat of a horror story. It can be slow and steady, building dread with each pulse. Or it can be erratic, throwing the reader off balance with sudden bursts of terror. Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House is a masterclass in using pacing to create a truly unsettling reading experience. The story unfolds in the eerie Hill House, where a group of paranormal investigators has gathered to study its secrets. Jackson takes her time, allowing the tension to simmer and build. She focuses on the characters' psychological states, their growing paranoia and fear as they experience strange and unexplained phenomena. A cold spot here, a whisper there, a door slamming shut on its own. The pacing is deliberate, mirroring the characters' descent into madness. Just when you think you have a handle on the situation, Jackson throws in a heart-stopping moment that leaves you reeling. She understands that true terror lies not in constant scares, but in the agonizing wait for the other shoe to drop. Psychological horror is all about messing with your head. It's not about gore or jump scares, but about the insidious creep of fear that takes root in your mind and festers. Edgar Allan Poe, the godfather of Gothic horror, was a master of this technique. Take his short story, The Telltale Heart, for example. The unnamed narrator insists he's not mad, but his actions suggest otherwise. He becomes fixated on an old man's vulture eye and plots to kill him. Poe brilliantly uses first-person narration to trap us inside the narrator's deteriorating mind. We experience his growing obsession, his paranoia, and ultimately his descent into madness. The true horror of the story doesn't lie in the murder itself, but in the psychological torment that precedes it. The sound of the old man's beating heart, even after death, becomes a symbol of the narrator's guilt and his unraveling sanity. Poe reminds us that the most terrifying monsters are often the ones we create within ourselves. Section 5. Setting the stage atmosphere is everything. Imagine reading a horror story set in a bright, sunny meadow. Not very scary, right? Atmosphere is crucial in horror. It sets the stage for fear, creating a sense of unease and dread that permeates every page. Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves is a chilling example of how atmosphere can be used to terrifying effect. The novel tells the story of a family who moves into a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Yes, you read that correctly. Danielewski uses unconventional formatting, shifting fonts, and even turning the text sideways to disorient the reader. This unconventional approach mirrors the characters' confusion and fear as they navigate the labyrinthine house. The house itself becomes a character, a malevolent presence that preys on the inhabitants' sanity. The oppressive atmosphere, the claustrophobic setting, and the constant sense of being watched all contribute to the novel's terrifying power. Danielewski reminds us that sometimes the scariest monsters are the places themselves, the spaces where logic and reason break down. Section 6. The unknown. Why uncertainty is scary. Our brains crave order and predictability. When we're faced with the unknown, our imaginations run wild, conjuring up worst-case scenarios. Cormac McCarthy's post-apocalyptic novel, The Road, might not be a traditional horror story, but it masterfully utilizes uncertainty to create a constant sense of dread. A father and son journey across a desolate, ash-covered America. The cause of the apocalypse is never explicitly stated, adding to the story's unsettling atmosphere. They encounter other survivors, but trust is a luxury they can't afford. The threat of violence, starvation, and unimaginable horrors lurks around every corner. McCarthy keeps the reader on edge by withholding information. We're never quite sure what dangers lie ahead, what happened to the world, or if there's even any hope left. This constant uncertainty, this sense of being lost in a hostile and unknowable world is what makes The Road so deeply unsettling. Section 7. Putting it all together. Crafting a terrifying tale. We've explored some of the key ingredients of a truly terrifying tale: suspense, pacing, psychological horror, atmosphere, and uncertainty. But how do these elements work together to create a cohesive and compelling horror narrative? Think of it like baking a cake. You can have all the best ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs, butter. But if you don't combine them in the right way, you'll end up with a mess. The same goes for horror writing. A master storyteller understands how to blend these elements, to carefully measure out the suspense, to pace the story for maximum impact, and to create an atmosphere so thick you could cut it with a knife. They know how to tap into our deepest fears, to make us question what's real and what's not, to leave us feeling breathless and haunted long after we finish the story. It's a delicate balance, a tightrope walk between delivering chills and becoming predictable. But when it's done right, it's a thing of beauty, a terrifying, unforgettable beauty. Section 8. Beyond the jump scares, appreciating horror. Horror often gets a bad rap. People dismiss it as cheap thrills and gore. But there's so much more to the genre than meets the eye. Just like any other form of art, horror can be intelligent, thought-provoking, and even beautiful in its own way. It forces us to confront our deepest fears, to confront the darkness that exists within ourselves and in the world around us. It allows us to explore the unknown, to grapple with existential questions, and to emerge from the darkness forever changed. So the next time you pick up a horror novel or settle in for a scary movie, remember that you're not just consuming entertainment, you're engaging with a rich and complex genre that has the power to challenge, terrify, and ultimately to illuminate the human condition. Section 9. Real-life fears, why we love being scared. Why do we willingly subject ourselves to stories that are designed to frighten us? Yet we find ourselves drawn to horror stories, movies, and haunted houses. Fear is a primal instinct, hardwired into our DNA for survival. In the safe confines of a scary story, we experience this response without real threat. It's a controlled dose of fear, making us feel exhilarated and alive. Section 10. Finding your fears, exploring different horror subgenres. The world of horror is vast and varied. Let's take a quick tour through some popular horror subgenres. First, gothic horror with crumbling castles and supernatural mysteries. Think Edgar Allan Poe and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Then cosmic horror taps into our fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft is the king of cosmic horror. And of course, slasher films with their iconic villains. There's a flavor of horror for everyone, so don't be afraid to explore the genre. Section 11. Keep the lights on, why horror matters. In a world obsessed with positivity and happy endings, horror offers a much-needed dose of reality. It reminds us that the world can be a dark and scary place, that monsters do exist both in the shadows and within ourselves. But it also reminds us that we are not alone in our fears. Horror stories provide a sense of community, a shared experience of confronting our deepest anxieties and emerging from the darkness together. They teach us valuable lessons about resilience, about facing our fears head on, and about the importance of empathy and compassion in the face of unimaginable horrors. So the next time someone tells you that horror is just